probably the most important scientific group in the United Kingdom. Maybe you can see them when you go to London. But the Royal Society has last week admitted that there are, quote, uncertainties about climate change. But then they said that temperatures in the last 10 years have gone up 0.15 degrees. I don't know how true they're being, because they also said in that same paper that CO2 is driving the climate, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a total lie. CO2 levels rise after the after the ocean warms, not before. So, to me, CO2 levels are in effect not a cause. So I don't necessarily believe them. There are other studies. For instance, you've heard about ClimateGate and how the University of East Anglia has been found to have been cheating, essentially.
Right. But you know what, Robert? A lot of people, anything that happens politically, often kind of dismiss these things.
Yes.
So I think that the geological facts and paradigms surrounding carbon are even more important than the East Anglia event.
Yes. Well, the thing is, they talk about carbon dioxide as being something that is unheard of right now. And here's the thing, is that CO2 levels and carbon dioxide levels rise and fall with this same magnetic reversal cycle that I've been talking about. They rise and fall with the precession of the equinoxes cycle, and it has nothing to do with humans. Is 11,000, 12,000 years ago at the Gothenburg magnetic reversal, we had that mass extinction. We had spikes in radioactive carbon-14 that were 3 to 4 times normal. We had spikes in radioactive beryllium-10 that were 2 to 3 times normal. We had spikes in iridium that were 2 to 3 times normal. And so, though that came in sync, then 23,000 years ago, we had the Mono Lake magnetic excursion. We had jumps in CO2 levels. These CO2 levels, and there are some scientists who have published on this, who think that those CO2 levels are directly connected to magnetic field modulation. So again, this is not just me saying that. These things change and did change long before humans ever arrived on this planet. One thing I have to mention, I had mentioned earlier about the carbon and the coal and the oil, the carbon accumulating on this planet 11,000 years ago.
Yes.
The same thing happened, and this was one of the things that, again, brought me to write this book, but when I was studying the dinosaur extinction from 65 million years ago, after the first book, they kept talking about coal, is that there were mysterious areas of carbon and coal all over the world. There was a graduate student at the University of Chicago, Wendy Wolbach, who talked about this layer of soot and carbon all over the world. She figured that it must have been that every forest in the world must have burned down at the dinosaur extinction. I'm saying that it was created in the sky. I've been to the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta. It is the largest dinosaur museum in the world, sitting out there in the middle of the prairies. But anyway, I've been there, and when you drive up to the museum, you can look around and you can see a black line in the soil. It's about a foot thick. But anyway, this is a black layer of coal about a foot thick that formed right at the dinosaur extinction. And below that layer of coal, there are dinosaur bones, there are various kinds of plants and other animals that existed before the KT extinction. Above that layer of coal, they all disappear. They're gone. I'm looking at this carbon and strontium, radioactive materials that arrive on our planet in sync with extinctions and with evolutionary leaps. There's so much carbon and coal at the dinosaur extinctions. There's a mine in France, the Bernissart mine, where when miners were drilling down into the mine, they discovered an area where there were entire dinosaur bodies buried in the coal. And these dinosaur bodies were not what they said is they were remarkably well articulated, meaning that they hadn't fallen apart. They were still all together, so they could identify. But they found these remarkable concentrations of dinosaur bones in the coal. Then they drilled even deeper. They drilled down another 10 stories, another 100 feet. There were still dinosaur bones embedded in the coal. Now, how does the dinosaur bones, that many dinosaur bones, get embedded in the coal unless coal was raining onto our planet? And another thing at the dinosaur extinction, black shales. And this is something, again, that I discovered when I was writing the first book, is that the oceans have a layer of black shale that was deposited on the oceans 65 million years ago at the dinosaur extinction. And this black shale, nobody's been able to really explain it, but this black shale is highly radioactive. Some of it is so radioactive that they mine black shale just for the uranium content. And so again, I'm saying this is radioactivity that somehow, there's no question it's there. So we know it somehow arrived on our planet. Well, how did it get there? I say it rained onto our planet during a reversal.
Both in the United States of America and the rest of the world, who at a geological level or at an anthropological level, at the highest level of knowledge, have you been able to report your findings and share your book?
So far, nobody has really wanted to talk to me.
Is it because you're not a formal scientist?
I would say probably that's true.
How unfortunate. I interviewed Gavin Menzies, who wrote 1421 and 1434, and the findings that they have about who got to America first, how the Renaissance started in Europe. You don't have to be a scientist to be an explorer and a discoverer. Well,
I think I have to give it time, is that, okay, I'm not a scientist, but I've spent the last 18 years almost full time, so I've spent more time on this than most people would spend on getting a doctorate. But now I do have scientists that do agree with me about the Ice Age cycle. There's a new one I just have to put on my website. I haven't had a chance yet, but just last week, Harrison Schmitt, geologist, doctor, he was one of the first Apollo astronauts. He walked on the moon, and most people forget that he's also has his doctorate in geology. That's why one of the reasons they picked him. But he just published talking about the Milankovitch cycle and talking about how ice ages are in our climate are totally affected by orbital parameters, which is what I, of course, say in the first book. You know that I had that we did an interview with Joe DeLeo and with Dr. Timothy Ball. So on the first book, I do now have scientists who are agreeing with me more and more. And I think it's just going to take time, like it did there. It's going to take time for them to agree with me on this second book.
We did interview Dr. Schmitt.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was very interesting. But that particular paper had not been out yet about the Milankovitch.
It came out, and I haven't even put it on my website yet. It was one that he published for SEP, Science Environmental Policy. I don't remember what that stands for, SEPP, but it was just published there, I think, last week. And I'm busy paraphrasing it so that I don't go stealing his article. And I'm busy paraphrasing it, and then I'll put it on my website. But, he's not saying that an ice age is going to begin next week, but he is saying that all of this stuff is run by orbital stretch and precession of the equinoxes. So, he talks specifically about the Milankovitch cycle, which is exactly what I talk about. That is the cycle that goes with precession of the equinoxes. So